over to Leslie, who is going to run this discussion.
Okay, now since we started this a little late, should we go on to 1:15 or?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Okay. Well, today we have, I assume this is District 3 that candidates that are running, is that correct? 4, District 4. Okay. We have the two Democratic candidates for District 4 in our U.S. Congress. And I will moderate. I will ask you to give an introductory presentation. I'll give you 3 minutes for that. And then after that, people can ask questions either on chat or by holding up their hand, putting a little hand icon on their square. And I ask that the questions be no longer than 30 seconds because I want to hear from the candidates and not from us. And then each of you has 2 minutes to answer that question. All questions should be addressed to both candidates. I don't want a question that's simply to one candidate. Either I will skip it or I will try and reword it so that it's answerable by both candidates. Then at the end, I will give you both 3 minutes to wrap up and say whatever it is that's on your mind or answer unfinished questions, that sort of thing. And I start by going alphabetically, and it looks like Jeanette is alphabetically ahead of Mike. We'll refer to you as Ms. Cass and Mr. McCaffrey, if that's okay. I don't know, or Jeanette, Mike. And so what I want to, and Jeanette, can you tilt your screen somehow? Because I can only see, now tilt it the other way, there. Well, I want to be, now you've tilted too much.
Tilt it up. A little more down.
Right there.
A little more down.
Could I also ask if we find out where the district is before they get started?
I'll post a map.
All right.
Okay.
And there, I think you're okay, Jeanette. So we'll start out with Jeanette. You have 3 minutes, and incidentally, when you get to 30 seconds before the end, I will hold up this. Then when you're 10 seconds before the end, I will hold up this. And when you have used up your entire time, I will hold up this. So you keep your eye out on me to some degree. All right, Ms. Cass, you're on.
This is my first forum, so I'm a little nervous, never done this before. So I'll just tell you about myself. My name is Jeanette Cass. I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 4th Congressional District of Missouri. Born in Missouri, raised on the family dairy farm, worked right alongside my brothers and sisters to keep the farm running. Got off the farm, wanted to go to college. Nope, that didn't happen. So long story short, I ended up at the Postal Service, and I'm retired from the Postal Service. I was a union steward while I was at the Postal Service. And if it hadn't been for the Postal Service, as a single mom, it would have been very difficult to raise my children without assistance, let alone buy the farm that I have now. I've always been a Democrat, and I got really involved in politics when January 2020, Virginia became the 38th state to ratify equal rights for women. And in February, Mitch McConnell said no. And in March, I had a disagreement with my cow. She broke my ankle. So I was laid up on the couch for 4 months and watched the whole COVID and the whole Trump mess come undone. And that really got me fired up. I got involved. I created a couple of podcasts, tried to learn as much as I could. In June of 2022, women lost the right to their own health care for their bodies, and that really set me off. So, in addition to interviewing politicians for my podcast, I was paying attention to see who in the 4th Congressional District was going to run. I really thought somebody from Boone or Cass or Johnson or Jackson would have stood up, you know, their larger populations, but nobody did. So I threw my hat in the ring. November 1st, I
Muted
started.
again.
Sorry. Uh-oh.
There, I can.
Messing
Can't hear.
up.
No, we can hear you, Jeanette. No problem.
You can. So, yeah, so I started trying to learn as much as I could and travel as much as I could, meet as many Democrats as I could. And I just kept getting more upset at the way our country's going. This is not the way I was raised. And the way our country is going is taking rights away, first from women, then LGBTQ plus, but it's not going to end there. It's just going to keep going. If anybody's looked at Project 2025, it's pretty damn scary. Sorry for the language. So yeah, I'm out there. I want to get to Washington and I want to work for Missourians. I want to put my head down and try to get some stuff done. We don't have a balanced budget. We don't have a farm bill. Both of those are extended past the deadline to be approved, and neither one are anywhere near. And amongst other things, the attack on our education system is just appalling.
Okay.
Am I out of time?
Ma'am, you're out of time. You're out of time. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't see no signs.
Okay. You'll have time to answer those questions and address further things at the end. Next, Mr. McCaffrey, unmute yourself and talk away. You need to unmute yourself.
How about now? Can you hear me okay?
That
Yes.
sounds perfect, Mike.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Mike McCaffrey. I'm a candidate for the Missouri 4th Congressional District. I live in Nevada, Missouri. I'm a business owner down here. I own McCaffrey Real Estate, and I've been working here as a broker since 1997. I'm married to Julia. She's a public school teacher here in Nevada, an elementary teacher, and she's been teaching down here for 20 years. We have 5 children. Our oldest daughter, Shelby's a Mizzou graduate, so we get up to Columbia. We used to more, she's in Springfield now, but we used to get up there a lot when she was there. So we always enjoyed visiting Columbia. The reasons I'm running, 3 primary reasons are: 1, to support our public schools. I've been a public school on the Board of Education down here for 16 years, and it's been one of the best experiences of my life, learning how our schools work and trying to work and make sure that kids are getting the best education that they can. And it's been challenging down here. I was board president when COVID hit and the mask controversies and all of that. It was very challenging for school boards everywhere. And we got over it. We got through it. Some difficult times, but I think it made the board better overall and stronger because of it. So that experience has just reinforced my belief in our public schools. All my kids have come up and graduated from Nevada, and I believe in our public schools, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to support them if I'm elected from the federal level. Second reason I'm running is to increase affordable housing in the district. As a realtor, I see all the time we've got a lack of good middle-class starter homes in our area. I'm not sure if the bigger cities like Columbia and Kansas City are running into this as much, but in the smaller towns, the county seat towns, we see that a lot. And so I would like to work, with the USDA, FHA, government loan programs to increase affordable housing. Third reason is to protect our democracy. The January 6th attack on the Capitol to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, it was definitely an eye-opener for me. And currently the attacks on judges like Judge Merchan in New York. So those are big concerns and 3 of the main reasons I'm running for office. So.
Okay. Thank you. Here. All right. Now I switch to the 2-minute thing, and it's time for questions, and I will alternate between who goes first each time. And since Ms. Cass started with the introductions, Mr. McCaffrey will start with the first question. Are there any questions for these people that are running for this important job? A little, if not, I can usually depend on her to ask a question.
I've got one, but it's a bit specific, so I was gonna
Is this
defer.
Dave Rachel that's talking now?
Yeah, I've got one,
Okay.
but I was gonna stifle it because it's very specific, and I was gonna let other people ask maybe more general things. So,
Oh, well, specific, as long as both people can answer it, that's okay.
yeah, okay. So in your part of the state, and it's been going on in Boone County for a while, we got this problem of concentrated animal waste and things that are left over from processing. Animal waste and the food we eat. And we know that they contain toxins and heavy metals and stuff like this because of the concentrations. Okay.
Is there a question in here?
Yes, all that is a
Okay.
consequence of the concentration of agriculture. Okay. And CAFOs and that kind of stuff. What have you guys got as policy proposals to undo that?
All right, how would you deal with CAFOs, basically, is the question.
And the
And Mr.
sludge and
McCaffrey?
stuff.
Yeah, Mr. McCaffrey, you're starting.
So we have in Vernon County where I live, there's a company previously it was called Murphy Family Farms, which was a hog operation. They've since been bought out by Smithfield Farms. So I do have some familiarity with the CAFOs down in our area. There's a lot more down to the south around Carthage with some poultry operations down there. So Dave, it's a good question. I do not have any detailed policy spelled out on that yet. You got to weigh out the jobs versus the pollution that it creates, with our rivers and streams. And so, I would probably seek advice from environmentalists and people that have studied that a little more than me. But definitely, if it's getting to the point where it's causing health, issues with the water and the water is, in the streams, if people are getting sick from that, that's a big concern. I think at that point, government would need to step in. So that's just kind of some general thoughts I have on the CAFOs. We used to have a lot of small hog operators around here. We're in a big farm community, as I'm sure Boone still has a lot of farmers as well. So, but the CAFOs have come in about 20 or 30 years ago. And definitely, I'd want to keep an eye on any kind of pollution levels, especially if they're affecting public health, that sort of thing.
Okay. All right, you're done? Okay, thank
Yes,
you. Ms. Cass, it's your turn.
But I don't have any specific policies at this time, but I am a farmer. I was raised on a dairy farm. They were not contained cattle. We rotated pastures with our cattle. We grew our own crops. And I feel like that's just about the healthiest way that you can have a farm. Animals are herd animals. They're herd animals. They like to roam. They have a certain path that they like to keep. And I think that CAFOs are a detriment to them. I watch several YouTubes of these dairy farms that have their cows contained, and they keep telling me how healthy they are, and they look very beautiful and healthy. But I can't help wondering how depressed those animals will become because they don't get out in the sunshine. They don't get to roam. They don't get to do what their instinct is. I can tell you in the 70s, my great uncle farmed next to our dairy farm and he raised hogs, but he had, I guess you call it the sow barn where, because I don't raise pigs, so excuse me. They, delivered their little piglets, but the rest of the time they were out in the pasture and they roamed. And I just feel like that's healthy for the animal and it's healthy for humans. I think when you get hundreds and thousands of hogs and put them in barns or cattle or chickens, that's where we start creating this pollution that we can't get rid of. And the 7th district, which is just down below ours, they have a situation now where they're dumping, these companies are coming in from out of state and they're leasing land to build these huge lagoons, something like 15 million gallons of animal waste from slaughterhouses and from CAFOs. They put it all in this lagoon and then they tell the farmers to come and get it and spread it on their land for fertilizer. And it is good fertilizer if you monitor it. But if you don't monitor it, okay.
You used up your time. You need to keep I see you always looking off to the side. Make sure you look to my square occasionally.
Oh,
so that
where is your?
Well,
I know you're in my,
you're
right in my face now, but when I'm talking, I don't know where to see you.
Yeah, sometimes we switch around. I don't know how that works, but that's what happens.
That's okay.
Well, thank you both.
So-
You're on the right side of the issue.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. I'd already bugged Herb. So question, because he's old, reliable. So Herb, what's your question?
Thank you for the endorsement for being old.
Oh, well, so I am.
Now I
too.
will the question. Can you tell us exactly or more precisely the boundaries of the 4th district and why it is in your personal background, not your policy preferences, which make you uniquely qualified among all in the race to go to Washington to tell them what to do?
It's a good question. Okay, Mr. McCaffrey, you're first.
Okay, well, that's a very good question. What makes me uniquely qualified? One, I think the primary reason would be I live here I'm here in the district, and I've lived in the district almost all my life. I went to college up in Fulton, and I graduated from Westminster in '91 with a degree in political science. So I've always had an interest in politics, but I've spent a lot of time in the district. I work in the district. I live in the district. I've served on a school board in the district for 16 years. And I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, with people out here, the struggles to make a living, to find decent housing, and to raise their kids. And excuse me, but I've lived here pretty much all my life, and I do believe I'm concerned about where we're going politically. Obviously, with MAGA and Trump, I think all Democrats share those concerns. But we have a long Democratic tradition back here. In the past 20 or 30 years, we've become more and more of a red state. I believe my background in the small town would help me bridge that gap. And I know people back here, and I would like to work with them to elect a moderate Democratic candidate to Congress, which could represent our state and move us forward without the acrimony and nastiness that we've seen with this MAGA movement. And I think that would be something that I could help with. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Katz, your turn.
I'm sorry, what was the question? Can you repeat the question?
What is your connection? Your
What makes
connection
me-
to the fourth,
Okay. I'm sorry.
your connection to the fourth district, how does that, and your connection, how does that make you uniquely qualified to be a representative?
Well, having been raised in rural Missouri, talking about towns of population 399, which is where I grew up in, and I now live in a population 408, something like that. So I'm in tune with the rural districts of our district, the rural towns, communities, but I'm also spent my life working in Springfield, Missouri, which is a metropolitan city, and I'm attuned to what's going on in the cities. And as a letter carrier, I was out in the community meeting all types of people, whether they were living in subsidized housing or owning their own business or just, grandma growing her flowers in the backyard. But I feel like I'm kind of like a bibs to blue collar person. I can cover that genre, and I'm kind of tired of seeing us send people to Washington that I hope I don't offend anybody, suits like Mark Alford. They've never been out in the community and worked with the community and know what the community needs. Rather, they've sat behind the desk and told us what they think we need. And I feel like they are not representing us because they haven't been out amongst us to see what we really need. Case in point, when Mark Alford came to Webster County, I told him he was killing us because he's not bringing jobs to Webster County. And he said it wasn't his job to do so. It is my job. It is our job. We need to bring jobs to Missouri so we can have health care. If you don't have jobs, you don't have health care. I feel like I'm in tune to what Missourians need, whether you're rural or urban or city. And I'm going to stop because she's showing me signs.
Okay,
I see your sign.
all right, fine, thank you. I see that there's been some questions that have been popping up on the chat, and there's 2 hands up on the screen, so I'll just alternate between those 2. One is from Kathy Jensen. And it says, please tell us your top 3 issues you want to address in the U.S. House. So Ms. Cass, you're first.
Well, the main
Top
thing
3 issues.
I'm sorry.
Your top
Ready?
3 issues.
The main thing is to get our budget balanced. We still don't have a balanced budget. We don't have a farm bill, which affects millions of Americans, whether you're a farmer or you're reliant on SNAP or food stamps. The other thing would be our immigration. We had a bipartisan bill, but they decided to use that to run for office rather than fix the issue. And I just think that's so un-American, and we need to change the way we think back to the way we're Americans, and we need to be fighting for all Americans. And to use something that affects every American so badly as a political ploy to run for office is just un-American to me. And we need to get that message out. We need to get the work done that we get sent there to do, and it's not happening today. This project 2025, if nobody's looked at it, it's scarier than hell. They're going to attack everything from education at the federal level to the FBI to the EPA, everything that protects us common Americans, it's going to affect. And so that's a priority. I mean, we've got to vote out these people who are backing the 2025 project. But yeah, those are my main issues. I didn't take my 3 minutes.
That's okay. You don't have to take it. It's 2 minutes actually for this point.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
no, oftentimes people don't always take their entire time. That's okay. All right, Mr. McCaffrey, it's your turn.
Yes, ma'am. Was the question my top 3 priorities or contrast with Mark Alford? I read something on the screen about a contrast with Mark Alford. Can you hear me
That's it.
okay?
Well, says that, yeah, I can hear you. Please tell us your top 3 issues you want to address in the U.S.
Sure,
House.
sure. So again, my top priorities are 1, supporting public schools, My experience on the school board is a big reason that I'm a supporter of the public schools. Increasing affordable housing in the district, and then protecting our democracy, which is right now our justice system is under attack, our election systems are under attack, and so those are definitely things that I would like to work to protect, to make sure that our democracy, stays strong and doesn't, get pushed over by one politician. So those are my 3 top priorities.
Thank you. All right, next we'll get a hand up. Let's see here. Who's had their hand up the longest? I think it's Sal Tacker or Mary Jo.
Yeah, we actually each have a question. I need to point out that although I can remember when Democrats did represent most, if not all of this area, it would be a big upset for either of you to win. And gerrymandering of Columbia into 2 pieces doesn't help either. But I'd like to know, what is your strategy for winning? What do you plan to do that will make you a good candidate? How are you going to get the votes in Higginsville and Warsaw and all through the rural part of the district?
A good question. Okay, Mr. McCaffrey.
Okay, well, first I've been in Higginsville and Warsaw in the past. I've been there this week. I've been out campaigning in Higginsville, Warsaw, Warrensburg, and I'm losing track. I've been somewhere else. Yeah, Higginsville. They've been very busy out campaigning, meeting other Democrats, and trying to get out into the district as much as I can. It is going to be an uphill fight for Jeanette or I, whoever wins this primary. It's going to be a tough battle. And I think she and I both realize that, but we're both running because we want to win and we want to make a difference and we want to beat Mark Alford. And that's my priority. I'd love to see Jeanette or myself beat Mark Alford and get a good Democrat back in the 4th district representing Western Missouri. So those definitely are, definitely going to have to campaign. I think that I have been elected on the local level. People down here know me. I've got some name recognition down here in a very red rural part of the state. Does that make it easy? No, but I do know people, and I'm going to keep working and trying to bridge that gap between the moderate Republicans that don't want to see us go, that don't want to go full MAG, and there's a lot of them out here, and I'm running into them a lot, and I'm sure Jeanette is too. So I think we need to just keep talking to folks and try to bridge that gap as much as we can, and show Mark Alford for the extremist views that he's proposing. So that would definitely be what my thoughts.
Thank you. Ms. Cass.
Okay, so let me start my little timer so I don't go over. Before I could retire from the Postal Service, I could not campaign, even though I created a podcast and I was interviewing politicians because of the Hatch Act. I'm a quasi-federal employee. And so I had been out trying to hit every county. It's really a challenge to hit 24 counties, especially since all but 2 of them have their monthly meetings on Thursdays. So it's hard to hit every county, which is my goal, and I'm sure it's Mike's goal as well. I lost my train of thought there for a second. Okay, so yeah, trying to get out to all the different counties. I think I got 11 counties left to get to before the primaries, which is crazy. I'm trying to raise money, which is extremely difficult, and it's very difficult to get people to volunteer to help you on your campaign. So I'm still trying to fill my, my campaign with volunteers to assist. It's hard to get people to knock doors, but that's what I'm doing. I'm knocking doors, I'm making calls, I'm postcards, sending them out at my own expense. I'm driving across the county as much as I can to get my word out as much as I can. The thing is, we have to hit the disgruntled Republicans and the independents, and you can't do that just going to the Democrat meetings. You have to get your Democrats everywhere to help you hit everybody. We cannot do it by ourselves, but I firmly believe we can do it if we all work together. And this is the year to do it. Everybody's mad because they're attacking everybody. So this is the year to do it. I need your help. Mike needs your help.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, now, next question will be, let's see here. Off of the chat. Okay, here's from Alvin Plummer. What is your position on DEI, as diversity and inclusion, critical race theory, and the 1619 project? How do these impact the children in your district? Okay, Ms. Cass, what do you think about diversity and equity and inclusion and critical race theory?
Let me start my little timer. I am a very strong supporter of DEI, and I think maybe it's because as a female, I have dealt with discrimination against females. When I entered the workforce, I thought we had equal rights. I worked right alongside my brothers my whole life, out in the fields, in the milk barns, the whole 9 yards. But when I get out in the workforce, it's a different story. So I am a very strong proponent of it. And when Mark Alford came to Webster County, I brought up all of his bills, and one of his bills is to take wokeism out of the military. I'm a very strong military supporter. I have a large military family. I have a lot of respect for them. And I think that's absolutely the worst thing that you can do, to take DEI out of the military. But that was a hill he's going to die on. He just firmly believes that, DEI needs to come out of the military to build a stronger military. I think it weakens us. We're Americans. It doesn't matter where you're from, what kind of background you had. We're Americans. They have been dividing us for the last 20 years, and it's time to put an end to it. We need to stand together and work together as Americans. And you can't do that if somebody's using excuses like, well, it's reverse discrimination against white people. I don't buy into that. It's just common respect. We need DEI, Project 16, critical race theory, our college, or CTR is a college program. It's not in our middle schools. I don't see anything wrong with it. It needs to be taught. We need to embrace our history, accept it, and grow with it. Thank you.
Okay, fine, thank you. All right, Mr. McCaffrey?
Okay, so on DEI, I'll start with that first. And yes, Mark Alford, I understand, I've read one of his policy positions is he wants to get rid of DEI across all elements of the federal government. I do not support that. I think we need to keep these programs in place. We need to keep working to make a level playing field for people of all races and genders. So, and we've still got a lot of work to do. The Republicans, that's a big part of their platform right now is to criticize anything any efforts to, or anything that points out the fact that we don't have equality in this society, whether that's race, whether that's, gender, religion. We still have prejudices in the United States of America in 2024, obviously, and we've seen that. And Trump and the Republicans are going to play on that and try to divide us as much as they can. So I think we need to, continue to work on that, continue to tell people that American history has been a slow process. The trend is upward. And we need to make sure that the trend remains upward, that we continue to work towards our towards equality and supporting that sort of thing. Critical race theory, we ran into this, hard a couple years ago when I was on the school board. That was one of the, the criticisms of public education. And critical race theory is not taught in any district in Missouri that I'm aware of at this point. So it's a boogeyman that they've thrown out there to scare people and scare young families to tear down our public schools. And we've got to, as the sign says, we've got to stop that. So we need to support it. Thank you.
Okay, fine. All right. Let's see, Mari, I thought you had your hand up a while ago. Do you still have it up?
Yeah, I'll ask my question. There are good ones in the chat too, but first of all, I just want to say thank you to both of you for putting yourselves out there. It's so important that we have a Democratic candidate running against Representative Alford, and I do live in the district. My question had to do with, and it's partially been answered, about what got you into the race, but who do you anticipate will be your greatest supporters, both financially and in terms of volunteers, etc.?
Okay. All right, Mr. McCaffrey, you start.
Well, I've talked a little bit about moderate Republicans and Democrats, and that is what I am going to try to appeal to. The rural areas of the district are going to be generally a little more conservative than some of the urban areas of the district. But I think, I look back at my experience on the school board. We don't run as partisans on the school board. We don't run as Democrats or Republicans. We go in there running, and we're elected in nonpartisan spring elections. And we go in with the idea, let's do what's best for kids. Let's try to make sure these kids get the best education they can. And so I am a strong Democrat. I believe in the Democratic Party. I believe in using government to bring people up, people that need a helping hand. I don't believe it's a never-ending thing, but I believe government can do good. And I look at FDR, Truman, LBJ, and what the changes they made to use government to help people. And that is kind of the story that I would like to tell people. So many Democrats, Republicans back here, we think that we don't need government anymore, and there's never not any government interference in our lives. But government's part of our lives. We've got farmers, or there's farm help from the government back here, and we need to reach out to people and make sure that they understand that the government can do good. And the Democratic Party has been the party behind that over the past 70 years. And that's the story I would tell.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Ms. Gass, you keep floating around too on the screen. All right, Ms. Gass, it's your turn.
Greatest supporters would be Missourians. I had a lot of opportunities to get donations from organizations, and I'd just rather not. I would rather go to Washington, D.C. to support everyday Missourians and not corporations. So in my opinion, that would be our greatest supporter, is just hitting every Missourian who doesn't feel like they're getting represented in Washington and going to represent them. That's just, I could easily reach out to several farm associations and ask for donations, but I don't want to be beholden to somebody. I want to go to Washington and represent everyday Missourians. And I can't do that without Missourians helping me. So it's a vicious circle there, That's my biggest supporters.
Okay. Thank you. Go back to the chat room. And the Mallories have said, been hearing a lot about foreign ownership of Missouri farmland, especially from the Republicans. Can you explain the background of this issue and share your views on the subject? All right. Foreign ownership of Missouri farmland. Ms. Cass, you're first.
Say that again. I'm explaining the background.
I've been hearing a lot about foreign ownership of Missouri farmland, like the Chinese or Brazilians or whatever. Especially hearing this from the Republicans. Can you explain the background of this issue and share your views on this subject? What are your views on that?
I think it's atrocious. I don't think foreign countries should own farmland. Possibly, I mean, I need to look more into that. Businesses. I mean, this is our country. I can't go over to China and buy a farm and start farming. So why are we allowing them to come here? I can't go to Russia and open a radio station. And yet here in Missouri, Russia has a radio station. I think we have to draw a line and protect our own country, especially in this day where, you know, communication is so fast. Something can get said here right now, what we're talking about, and be shipped over to Russia, China, Taiwan in a nanosecond. So we really need to focus on protecting our own country. And we have a very valuable country. We have a lot of assets. We have a lot of strength, and we need to protect that. And the only way to do that is to put a stop to this. I believe, was it, oh God, I'm going to butcher this. Oh my gosh. Eric Schmidt took part in allowing China to buy farmland in Missouri. And this is the message that we have to get out to Missourians. The Republicans are the ones that allowed this to happen, and we need to change it. And we are the only ones that can do it. The Democrats are going to do it, but we can't do it if we don't get support and we don't get elected.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. McCaffrey.
So the Chinese have bought Smithfield farms, at least the Smithfield down in our county that previously was Murphy Farms. It was the hog operation. So, you know, it's a concern. Is it on my top 2 or 3 levels of concern right now? I don't know. I think China and Russia, I would not want to see China and Russia buying farmland in the United States right now, especially around any kind of military installations. I think there is some legitimate concern there. And especially right now when the Chinese and Russians are spying on the United States, and we're having difficulties with, you know, obviously with Putin and President Xi over Ukraine and Taiwan, these type of issues. I think definitely for the near future, I would be opposed to China and Russia buying farmland in the United States. The background, how this all came up, I can't really give you the history of it, but I think right now it's a legitimate concern with the state of, you know, with the difficulties we're having with Ukraine, Taiwan, and the expansionist, you know, views we're seeing from those 2 countries. So.
That's it. Okay. I see. Mary Jo has the question.
I have a quick question. How do you feel about immigration and immigration policy?
Okay, that's a good one. All right. Mr. Caffrey.
Okay.
Your turn.
So immigration, you know, 6 months ago, the Senate passed a immigration bill on the southern border it was a bipartisan bill, I believe, with Senator Langford, Senator Murphy, and Senator Sinema that was probably one of the most conservative immigration bills for the southern border that we've seen in many years, and probably for 30 years. And the Republicans in the House blocked it. Speaker Johnson called it dead on arrival. This was at the time President Trump was, I understand, calling the congressmen and telling them not to, he wanted, to block this legislation. He wanted to let the problem continue so he could use it for political advantage up through the election. So I think something needed to be done. President Biden obviously just used executive power to restrict border access. I think this plan President Trump has got is very dangerous. I think he has proposed using the military and police to round up upwards of 1 million illegal immigrants and deport them, folks that are already living here. I have a lot of concerns about that. I think it's dangerous. And that really concerns me. I think there is some pretty strong public pressure and demand for increased immigration reform and border security. But the Republicans in Congress need to help with this, and they've blocked it so far. Those are my general thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cass?
Oh, good girl. We were talking, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Immigration. What is your
Oh,
position on how to handle immigration issues?
Well, I think immigration is very important to our country. We do need immigrants to come in and help us in the labor force, especially now when we have the lowest unemployment rate since the last 50 years. So there are jobs that still aren't filled, and we could use immigrant labor to fill those jobs. They do pay taxes. They do pay Social Security. That's a win-win on that. However, the border issue is a problem. I mean, we don't need millions of people flooding here from every other country that when they could have sought asylum in a country closer to them. And like Mike said, and like I said earlier, that
Can't hear you. I can't hear you.
it quit.
All right, yeah. All right, yes.
You're back, I think.
Are you back? Okay.
Yeah, like Mike and I said earlier, there was a Senate bipartisan bill that was passed. And like I said earlier, in my opinion, it's completely un-American for the Congress to use that, to fail to bring it to the floor, to debate it and vote on it. Instead, they chose to use it to campaign on. This is an issue that is, in their words, vitally important to get addressed. And yet all of a sudden, because it's a campaign year, we don't want to address it and get to resolve it, get to the bottom of it, because we want to use it as an issue to campaign on. And to me, that's completely un-American. And yeah, I want to get in there and I want to, we need Democrats in Congress to get this fixed. And the only way we can do that is get y'all's help. So yeah, let's fix the immigration issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think I saw one from Pam Springsteel. I have to go there.
I saw it. I read it. I'll hold my mic.
I'm going to say it out loud. Okay. How would you decrease the deficit? All right, Ms. Cash, you're first.
Oh, I'm first.
Yeah.
I don't have the stats in front of me, but President Biden had laid out a very good plan to balance the budget, which would have reduced the budget. And the number one thing is the ultra rich need to pay their fair share in taxes. In no way, sorry, there was a fly on my screen. In no way should it be acceptable that just because you're a multimillionaire, you shouldn't have to pay taxes, because whatever your business is in the United States is using resources from the United States that we have to pay for, and they don't have to pay for it. And that's just un-American to me. Before Reagan got into office, we didn't have this issue. Everybody paid their fair share, and we need to get back to that. That would be
Thank
my
you.
number one thing.
Well,
Sorry, that would be my number
of
one thing.
course, give more time. Otherwise, all right, fine. All right, Mr. McCaffrey.
I agree largely with Jeanette on that. I think that the Republicans have been talking, have used trickle-down economics to convince, working people that it's all going to trickle down to them, and they need to reduce taxes on the wealthy. I think we've got enough experience with trickle-down economics over the past 30, 40 years. We've seen what it does, and that it doesn't work. So taxes do need to be increased on wealthy Americans. I think the Biden plan was to raise them on income earners over 400,000 and leave them alone or lower them for earners below that. So I think that is definitely one thing that would help the most. I went back, I read a piece by Warren Buffett he wrote 10 years ago about, I can't remember the title of it, Stop Being Easy on the Super Rich, something like that. But, he made the point that he was paying a 17% effective tax rate on his income, where people that were working in his office were paying about a 35 or 40% effective tax rate. And he just asked the basic question, is that fair? I mean, that a billionaire like him, and he obviously knew it wasn't fair, and that's the reason he wrote it. But, we need fairness in our tax code, and giving away the store to billionaires and the ultra rich is not the solution, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. We are now about 10 after the hour, and I think we have to wind it up. I'm sorry, there's lots of good questions, but we need to do is have you do your 3-minute wind up speech. And this time, let's see here, Ms. Cass started was the first to start last when we opened. So Mr. McCaffrey, you have 3 minutes to wind up.
Okay.
Say whatever you want.
Okay. Am I up or Jeanette? Sorry, my office phone.
You are, Mr. McCaffrey.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it. And I'd love a chance to get up there, and maybe Jeanette and I, if we could find a date where we could both get up there in person sometime before the primary, I would really enjoy that. I did get a chance I was up there 2 or 3 weeks ago to hear Lucas Kuntz speak. And it's always nice to get up and visit up in that area. We need to beat Mark Alford's the guy we're both running against, and we need to remember what we're up against with Mr. Alford. There's no, and I say this every time I talk, there's no daylight between Mark Alford and Donald Trump. And he's repeating all of Trump's, disinformation. Mark Alford, when Trump goes after the New York judge and the prosecutor in New York after his convictions, Mark Alford goes after him too, and he says the judge and the prosecutors are corrupt, and every mean adjective he can come up with to try to stick up for him. Mark Alford has said that in the January 6th attempt to stop the certification of the votes, he has said that he believes the movie 2000 Mules over our Justice Department. And I think it's ridiculous that we've gotten to this point where we've got people that were elected to public office that we expect to hold to high standards, promoting conspiracy theories. In the United States of America in 2024, we've got that. and Mark Alford is unfortunately doing that. So I will do everything I can to campaign and beat Mark Alford. I'm excited. I've met a lot of good people, and I've had a lot of people come up to me in small towns. I was in Warsaw the other night, and I met a young man, probably about 40, who was an Iraq war vet, come up and he's got his two sons with him at the park and said, "God, I'm just glad to see there's some other Democrats around here." And he gave us a big smile, and we had a good visit with him. He told us some funny stories. He likes to wear his Biden shirt into Walmart he gets dirty looks at Walmart, just wearing his Biden shirt, if that tells you what it's like out here. So, but anyway, great guy. And I'm meeting a lot of people like that are just happy to see other Democrats out there. And so we need to make our presence felt and try to get this state back on an even keel. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Cass, it's your turn. 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for having Mike and I on here. I love what you're doing. I want to answer somebody's question that they posted. They asked who owns the most American farmland, which foreign country owns the most. And so I went through my notes and pulled up Canada owns the most American farmland, then the Netherlands, Italy, United Kingdom, Germany, Portugal, France, Denmark, Luxembourg, and Ireland. Those are the top 10 who own the most. But then, that's concerning. It's kind of spooky, but it's not downright frightful and scary like China owning our land and owning our food processing centers. That's the scariest part. But yeah, in closing, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Look, it's hard work doing this. I've never been a politician before, so I'm on a learning curve. Costs a lot of money, by the way, LOL. I went to Camp Carnahan for training on how to be a politician. And one of the first things they told me is if you're running for Missouri House, you need to raise $150,000. If you're running for U.S. office, you need to raise $2 to $5 million. Well, that's hard to do because I'm not a polished politician, and I don't want to ask corporations. I want to represent everyday Missourians. So I want to reiterate that how important it is to donate and help Mike and I, so one of us can get in there and represent you. Mark Alford is a very, very scary individual. And, he signed on hook, line, and sinker to Trump. And it's not going to look pretty if we don't throw every ounce of energy that we have to fight to keep him out. And Mike and I can't do it by ourselves. We need the 700 and some thousand Missourians in our district to help. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate this. And like Mike said, I hope we can come up in person sometime soon.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm glad to see that we have people running that district. And whichever one wins a primary, you got my vote.
Thank you both, and thank you, Leslie, for
and now-
moderating.
Pardon me?
Thank you, Leslie, for moderating, and thanks to both candidates.
All right. Turn it back over to Dan.
Okay. Pam, were you going to complete your announcements?